This is the greatest time in history to build things that society needs. And I would encourage anyone who's trying or thinking about building something, just jump in.
Being able to recognize content, know exactly what you're watching, what second you're at, and understand that content at extremely granular second by second level. So Rumi is the infrastructure for those agents.
When I knew you were different is, we were grabbing lunch in SF one day and you told me, look, Sal, I'm going to be really honest with you. This is my third company I've started. And my wife was giving me an ultimatum. She said, this is the last one.
We actually already see signs of demand. We're partnering with Division, which is one of the leading competitors to Nielsen. But they're very interested in this viewership data because you just cannot collect it anywhere else at the moment.
One of the secrets that a lot of us don't realize is like most hardware companies, for instance, like television manufacturers, when you look at their statements, it turns out that some of their television divisions are loss leaders. And where do they actually make their money? They make their money on the underlying analytics that they passively are collecting in the background. This is months and months and months and months of model training and being deep in the weeds before we decided we have something now that the world can benefit from.
Guys, welcome back to the Building in Public podcast. Today, we're really happy to host the founders of Rumi. So we've got Niko Cunningham here and Mateusz Poreda, as well as Sal, my co-host. So the big news that we're announcing today, which I feel like I'm stealing the thunder mentioning it, but we'll get into the details here in a second, is that EV3 and A16Z CSX are co-leading their $5 million pre-seed round. So super excited to tell the world about Rumi for the first time. And I'll actually let either you or Mateusz just give a brief 2-sentence description of what Rumi is before we jump into the specifics later on. But I feel like you'll do a better job than I will.
So Rumi's vision is to transform how people consume content. We're turning passive media into interactive experiences. We're building infrastructure that empowers the next generation of contextually aware consumer AI agents that can help realize this mission. I'll tell more about that in a moment, but that's 2 sentences. It's a DePIN network that helps us build this infrastructure that we then open to AI consumer agents that enable a lot of crazy use cases that are not possible right now, that I will tell you more about later in this interview.
There we go. Deepen makes a lot of sense. Excited to dive into the specifics here. Sal, over to you.
Hey guys, before going into this focus on Rumi, I think it's as investors, we're always really people focused. I want our audience to have a chance to have the same experience that I got meeting you guys over the past few months as due diligence what you guys were building and had the luck to ultimately be on your guys' app table. So the way to frame this question, I think, Niko, specifically towards you, there's 2 things that I thought were really, really rare about you that I found out through our diligence process. And the first one that I remember is this: you early on, I think after the very first time we spoke, you sent me an 11-year-old video called "How a Boy from the Hood in Detroit Found His Way," and it tells a story about you leaving Detroit, dropping out of UNC with a 1.8 GPA, selling 30 doors per home or selling encyclopedias, knocking on doors 30, 40 times a day, and eventually having, working on some of the coolest startups that, some of which I'd say were even before their time. And now you see sort of these ideas coming to fruition. But when I asked what's been the single driving force behind your journey that led you to so many different places, and how'd you end up building what we're going to be building today?
Thanks, Sal. I think there were 2 really interesting turning points in my life growing up that kind of the thread is carried on now, 30 plus years later. The first is, so I did grow up in inner city Detroit. Thanks, Sal, for watching that video, because it is an oldie. But I grew up in inner city Detroit, 80s and 90s. Everything you read about, gangs and drugs and bad things like that. That was the existence back then for just about everyone who lived in Detroit. But when I was about 10 years old, we got a knock on the door from an encyclopedia salesman. And I think that was pivotal moment number 1, because for the first time ever, I ended up having access to all the world's information sitting on my shelf, right? And I remember doing things like watching Jeopardy as I was growing up and trying to record it with our VHS cassettes at the time and pausing it, running over to our encyclopedias, trying to look up an answer to see if I can kind of compete with the contestants on Jeopardy, seeing if I can come up with the answer in 60 seconds or so, and then seeing if I was right. And I remember doing that sort of indirect, I guess ahead of its time, LLM style querying. I did that thousands of times growing up. And that's, I ended up probably reading those encyclopedias like end to end, probably 100+ times. So, fast forward, 10 years after that, actually, I found an opportunity to actually go and sell encyclopedias and educational software myself in rural America. And for me, it just made so much sense because like that knowledge unlocked all of my future career paths. And I thought, could I make an impact on kids' lives in a similar way? So for the next 6 years, literally sold books and software door to door, sat in about 11,000 living rooms, crazy experience. But at the end of the day, really looking back saying like, you made an impact in so many kids' lives. That's what kind of, I think, just makes me happy every time I think about it. But there was another reflection point too when I was growing up that was super interesting to know about, which is I got hit by a car when I was 11. And when I got hit by a car, there was just enough insurance money that came out of that to A, pay my medical bills, and two, for my dad to buy my first PC. And so at that moment in time, not only did I have my encyclopedias on the shelves, but now I can log in the Prodigy and CompuServe and all the BBSs. And that kind of led my trajectory in terms of like being involved with technology for the next, couple decades. So those two things are fundamental to how I view the world in terms of trying to unlock information. And that's been the career thread I've had for the last 10 years being in Silicon Valley, starting companies or helping AI and ML efforts with other companies as well.
The other story I always remember from diligence when I knew you were different is, we were grabbing lunch in SF one day, and you told me, look, Sal, I'm going to be really honest with you. This is my third company I've started, and my wife is giving me an ultimatum. She said, this is the last one.
Yeah.
So I asked what's like, why stay in the game so long? And then why do it in crypto for this time around?
Wow. Some people just need to be builders, right? We need to see some things in the world that not only impact our own families, but also the world at large. And I would say this to any founder listening to the podcast here, like no matter what, being a founder comes at a cost, right? And it's super important to have those closest to you to be in alignment with the sorts of decisions you need to make every day as being a founder, because there's no such thing as like this utopian thing we hear about called work-life balance. When you're starting something where the default state is for that thing to be dead, like a startup's default state is not being alive, it's not being vibrant, it's not being used in the world, default state is dead. When you're swimming upstream against that default case, it's all encompassing, right? And it's so critical to have the people that are around you who give you support to be aligned with that mission. But with that being said, in my own personal situation, if we brought my wife onto the pod right now and asked her, what should you be doing, Niko, to give me maximum happiness? She would probably say, you should just go work at FedEx or be an Uber driver, just so you're home, just so you're with the family. But like I was saying earlier, I think if you're a builder, it's hard to say yes to that proposition. You have to go out there and build. And I would say this to anyone listening here is, it doesn't matter if you're a college dropout. It doesn't matter if you're technical or non-technical. It doesn't matter if you think you're over the hill. This is the greatest time in history to build things that society needs. And I would encourage anyone who's trying or thinking about building something, just jump in, and then figure out how you align your family and loved ones after you jump in.
Niko, I'm ready to run through a brick wall now. That was a great, it's time to build type speech. But Mateusz, question for you, kind of similarly on your background. So I saw you'd worked at BCG in the past. I did as well. So we're fellow BCGers. I was only there for a short while, and I don't think I loved the type of work. I worked with mostly financial services clients, and I was way more interested in the tech and crypto side of things, but I didn't have a ton of direction or choice over, what type of clients I had. But I did love the people that I worked with there. And I think a lot of the processes and kind of ways of thinking that I learned there were pretty pivotal to the rest of my career so far. So I saw you've worked in a lot of different roles since BCG. So like technical product manager side of things, corporate strategy, operations. Like, was your time at BCG formative or helpful? What do you say? And do you think it prepared you to take on a bunch of different roles post BCG?
Yeah, I would say I believe that management consulting, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, equips you with very valuable, transferable business analytical skills. I think it's quite great for starting career. I wouldn't recommend staying there for too long. I mean, it depends on personality. I know friends who've been there for over 10 years and they're very happy. In my case, there weren't really that many options back in Poland for like the beginning of the career. Startups were non-existent when I was in college. There were maybe like 2 success stories of like exits out of Poland. No investment banking, like corporate jobs were just if you have a lot of ambition, there is very low opportunity, right? So I actually started my career with Spotify. It was 12 years ago. Spotify was still in the startup stage. So I was leading business development when they were starting Central European markets. It was quite underwhelming from the learning perspective. Like all the playbooks for what we were doing on the BD side were developed back in headquarters. It's satellite countries were just executing on those playbooks. So, and I feel like it's like, as I talk to my friends who work in Poland, other countries for Google, Meta, and so on, it's quite similar. It's not like particularly creative work. So it wasn't intellectually stimulating. So I made a plan back then. Like I realized that like I will not feel fulfilled if I stay in Poland. So I made a plan to move to US and to be in charge of creating the playbook and not just executing it. So I went to BCG primarily as I knew it's a best path to get accepted to one of the top business schools, which would be my ticket to US. And it did help indeed. I got accepted to Harvard Business School, moved to US, and like at the time at school, I fell in love with AI. I was in 2018. So out of school, I transitioned to IBM Watson to work on our data and AI portfolio as on the corporate strategy side, and then as technical PM. The BCG skill set was very handy in navigating that work. But I also realized at the moment how much I hate corporations. So as soon as I got my green card, I was out to do startups. I knew that like this is my calling. So first as COO at Omni Network, another Web3 protocol, and finally to co-found Rumi. I generally advise young people to like experiment with their career and like try different things, learn different skills, and not just pigeonhole yourself at early age and like, okay, like out of school, go to BCG and stay there for 15 years. Like in my case, it like might seem a little bit random how my career, like all those different steps across my career, but the combination of business development, management consulting, technical product management, and getting exposure to different industries, media, AI tech, Web3, it actually allowed me to gain very unique perspective and skill set that makes it possible for me to bring project as unique and complex, ambitious as Rumi to life.
Spoken like a true X management consultant. Yeah, I think the ability to work on a lot of different industries and a lot of different kind of types of problems within those industries is what I always liked about consulting, and it's great you're able to continue that, wearing multiple hats. At Rumi. Talking about Rumi now, like maybe let's start with the supply side to give our audience a better sense of what specifically you guys are building and how they can get involved. So we've got this great core audience of DePIN contributors that listen to this podcast pretty regularly. There's always new kind of DePIN hardware, software coming out that either earns you points or tokens for contributing to a network. Let's talk about the Rumi kind of supply side and how you all are looking to have people contribute to your network and why it's a DePIN in the first place.
Okay, should we then maybe elaborate on the like very short vision that I started with? But because I know it's quite complex. So let's get back to this vision of revolutionizing how people consume content, transforming passive media into interactive experiences. So we're building towards that future in which people can deeply engage with media such as TV, streaming, audiobooks, podcasts, and so on, by being able to talk to media, ask any question about the content as they watch, personalize that content, add infinite augmentation layers on top of that content. And this will be possible thanks to contextually aware AI agents, being able to recognize content, know exactly what you're watching, what second you're at, and understand that content at extremely granular second by second level. So Rumi is the infrastructure for those agents that enable those use cases. So through our decentralized network, we're building the richest knowledge base about content in the world. Plus, we're building Shazam for media in a way that allows agents to identify content, know exactly what you're watching, what second you're at. And the role of our miners, our indexers, who can permissionlessly download our extension with like UX very similar to something like Grass, and earn passive income while streaming videos on their favorite streaming platforms. The role of those miners is to run our AI analytics models locally on their devices, to contribute their compute to enable the building of the richest knowledge base about content. And this is what we're compensating them for. So we will then open up this infrastructure through our APIs to third-party AI agents, such as the ones of Virtuals.io or Olas Network that we're already partnering with, and other platforms such as Character AI, Replica. So like both Web3 and Web2, right? Like I think like Meta will likely be the biggest player, one of the biggest players in the consumer AI agent space. So like all of these agents can get contextual awareness thanks to Rumi. Yeah, like those agents are currently mostly bots on social media. There isn't that much that you can do with them. So we're very excited to give them superpowers of this contextual awareness, ability to interact with media, and provide additional paths of monetization for agents through contextual ads, through agentic ads. So yeah, like indexers, miners are absolutely critical for this approach. We cannot actually do this centrally. So thanks to the support of all the miners, we're actually building that future in which media becomes more interactive, more allowing for deeper connection, more engaging, allowing people to grow versus just passively staring at the screen. I don't know if I answered your question. Yeah.
No, you did. I think passive contribution is the keyword there, right? It's going to be pretty easy then for you to build a large global community of contributors because they don't have to do too much, right? They're not like running around in the real world having to do things. They're kind of just watching their favorite streaming platforms and like able to contribute. There's also a compute component though too, right? Is there a compute and bandwidth component that I as a contributor am contributing to the network as well?
Yeah, you're to run those AI models, both audio and video analytics, we need compute that is coming from your machine. So we're leveraging your compute. On the bandwidth side, it's just using a little bit to stream back the output of the models to our servers.
Gotcha. And then because the models run locally, I'm assuming there's not really any issues with privacy or anything like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So personal data is never collected or used in any way. Rumi only processes content locally on your device, does not access or transmit any of your private information. We only have access, like if you have a tab open of the streaming service, we would only read directly from the sound card, the soundtrack, the frequencies, audio frequencies directly from the sound card, just from this tab. So even if you're doing things like if you're, I don't know, talking to somebody via your computer, like on WhatsApp, using the same computer that you're using for analyzing content with Rumi in a different tab, we're not going to catch any of that. We're only catching the soundtrack of the title, and we're only getting the transcript from the frames within the tab where the streaming is playing. And only the transcript and only the cache of audio is being transferred to our server.
And you could imagine, just for simplicity's sake, that our agents are living on your machine and watching content with you, right? And that's the simplistic way to think about our entire process. And as long as you allow our AI agents to watch alongside you and understand the world and understand video and understand the relationships between things within video, you are.
Got it. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's a very surgical level of precision you guys have in terms of the data that's captured and the data that's used. And that would make me feel better as a contributor to Rumi. Besides downloading the extension and running it as often as possible, right? What are other ways that community members could maximize their points or provide a lot of value to the network? Are there any other ways?
So to maximize the points, there are actually two modes for using our extension. First is regular. You want to watch something, particular title, you open your streaming platform, you get a pop-up, hey, you want to earn while watching it, you accept, that's it. You watch passively. You're earning passively. The other mode is autopilot mode. I guess targeting more of Web3 farmers. So basically, you can set it up, set it and forget it. You give us access just to the streaming platform within that particular tab to move between titles that we prioritize for indexing, that are the most important to us. And you're getting higher points for this. There is a multiplier for autopilot mode. Then we have a bunch of other bonuses, like completing the title. It's more valuable to us if somebody goes for the full title versus when we have to then stitch parts of the parts of the output together. There is also referral points. We're gonna have, like, on day one, we're gonna have a referral program. So the more people you invite to join Rumi community, the more points you're gonna get. There's gonna be some other like early joiners incentives, and yeah, we're gonna continue coming up with different challenges for people to make it like more interactive.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that there's two modes there, right? Because I think some people would really be willing to watch specific titles to contribute even more to the network and just kind of leave their machine running. So you want to try to capture the whole kind of supply curve of different contributors there. That makes a lot of sense. We've covered supply pretty well, I think, at this point. I'd love to talk about demand. So we've talked about a couple different avenues for demand, but I'm curious, two things to start off. One, like, what do you see as the day one kind of biggest sources of demand for the network? And then also, what are some maybe more novel user experiences or use cases that you might see pop up or you could envision popping up once a data set like this has been built out?
Yeah, so first, we're going to open up the network to third-party agents, like, as I mentioned, virtual, Solus network, character AI, and so on. So those agents get ability to interact with content at many different levels. We're also considering building our own client on top of Rumi network. But yeah, maybe I will leave this for later stage to reveal it. So the use cases, like what agents can do, what applications using Rumi can do that is not really possible right now. Can start with contextual perplexity kind of functionality. You can ask any question about the content as you're watching without providing much context. How are these two characters related? What did they miss in the last 10 minutes of the show? Why was this a foul? Is this scene historically accurate? Is what the candidates give me a live commentary if what presidential candidates in this debate are saying is actually factually correct, right? Like, all those things agents can provide you with Rumi. Content creators, which are another very important group of stakeholders for us, they get ability to enrich the content, which is not technically possible today. They get currently they're getting tons of traffic from streaming gaming, from React videos, but they cannot really provide such live augmentation on top of TV content as rebroadcasting that through YouTube or Twitch would like immediately result in you being taken down from those platforms. But these content creators can do this with Rumi while staying fully IP compliant. But the biggest opportunity, like versus humans can of course provide their experiences, but I think the biggest opportunity we see is with agentic experiences where content creators, celebrities can clone themselves in a way to enrich any type of content with their voice and unique style at scale, right? Not creating dedicated content to any particular title. So you can imagine watching cooking show with Gordon Ramsay, UFC fight with Joe Rogan. your kid watching cartoon with their favorite character spinning up live extra educational activities as the kid is watching. So they do not just like passively stare at the screen, but rather learn and engage. You can make any character from the show come to life and talk to that. You can talk to them in the context of what actually you see on the screen, like watching Harry Potter's actions while hearing what Lord Voldemort thinks about that. You can watch a football game with alternative commentary from your favorite players and influencers. In the future, you'd be also able to modify video layer itself within Rumi as the video generation models are improving. Say you want to see alternative ending to Game of Thrones. Brands can also enrich content, completely transforming advertising to more subtle, more contextual, higher ROI type of experience. So for example, you're watching a football game and like the team is getting closer to the touchdown line. DraftKings can pop up ads. If you want to bet, there's going to be a touchdown within 15 seconds. Fashion brands sending you a link to buying similar dress to what your favorite White Lotus character is wearing as you look at them. On Instacart can like send you a shopping cart filled with ingredients needed to cook what you see in Hell's Kitchen. Rumi can make it all possible.
Yeah, I think the big unlock here, which is pretty cool, right, is that this is just a new layer in the stack that we already have in our living rooms, right? We already have our television. We already have our OS that we use, right? Whether that's Roku or Android TV. We already have the streaming services that we subscribe to. And this is a new entrant into the stack that unlocks all of the possibilities of all of those other formats on the stack to actually allow people to become super interactive with that content that they've already invested so much in. They've already invested in these subscriptions. They've already invested in this big TV on their wall. Now make it come alive.
Yeah. So we really believe that like with Rumi, like all the participants, key stakeholders in media ecosystem are benefiting so much. Content creators getting completely new channel, like the new forms of content that they can create. IP owners, they can deepen, connect, gain direct to consumer channel, communicate with consumer at the moment when they're like the most susceptible to that, when they're watching their content, their favorite content. You can increase engagement of the users, which is super, like the most important thing for IP owners, for content distributors, and you gain extra paths to monetization, and then finally advertisers, brands. Just like most, you know what I say, like half of the advertising is total waste of money. The problem is we don't know which half. You could like ads on TV are pretty terrible. On streaming platforms, the same. Like I'm getting the ads typically for like people for who are balding, like which
he's like, that's not me.
That's not me. We can improve ROI on ads drastically. So all the stakeholders in the media ecosystem are benefiting from Rumi.
Yeah, that was an absolutely legendary, I think, all-time riff on different use cases. It sounds like there's really so many possibilities, and I'm sure many will pop up that will even surprise you guys as you build this out. But I think there's a lot of implications for metaverse type experiences, a lot of implications for higher ROI on ads, like personalized contextual ads. There was an episode in the newest series of Black Mirror that was all about kind of like in-person ads and using humans as almost like paid actors for those is really interesting. So lots to think about kind of in a sci-fi lens here, but I'll turn it over to Sal to ask our last few questions here.
Yeah, guys, I want to actually take it back to invert it and go to like the history of this industry that I had a chance to learn about as I got to learn some more about what you guys are building. The company in the space that we spent a lot of time talking about was Nielsen. Nielsen is probably a $20 billion company today. It's a 100-year-old company who was started by this guy named Arthur Nielsen. A really simple idea. He created a device called the Audimeter. You would basically put this device on your radio in the 1920s and 30s. It would measure what station you're listening to and how long you're listening to it, if the radio was on. And people would mail these tapes in to Nielsen, the company, and effectively give them data on what is happening with the radio ecosystem in the US. he figured out that he could sell this data both to radio stations themselves who want to like track their performance and prove to advertisers that they were the best station, and also to the brands and advertisers themselves who were, the radio was just spinning up. They were trying to understand how to allocate advertising money to these new channels that were capturing a lot of attention. He did this again with TV in the 50s and 60s as it rolled out. It's again a 100-year-old business worth tens of billions of dollars today, in a way where the technology is pretty much the same as it was. The core of, obviously now that people aren't mailing in tapes, you can send it over the internet, but by and large, the technology is the same as it was back then, and they're providing that same service to the same types of businesses. So I'm curious, like for you guys, what do you think about, like, help the audience understand in a world of Nielsen versus a world with Rumi, like what's different? What can people do? Like, how much more effective is advertising and why?
Yeah. That's a very good point. Nielsen. So Rumi is actually providing a path to decentralize Nielsen. Nielsen is just part of this viewership analytics market. So believe like TAM is much bigger than whatever Nielsen 20 billion is worth. And it's forecasted to grow significantly as this type of data is becoming more and more valuable for AI. And contextual ads market, like agentic ads market, is also forecasted to grow drastically. Right now, it's very minimal, right? We're just starting, but the forecasted growth is exponential. And this data is really critical to make those contextual ads work. So how Nielsen works, you talked a little bit about it. So like you basically install, still to this day, they install a piece of hardware at your home, integrate it with your TV so that they're monitoring linear TV, streaming, like whatever you're watching on streaming platforms and so on. They do it just in, they have 50,000 households in the US, and it yields them like $2 billion of annual revenue from this data. So they're monitoring the content consumption, monitoring the viewership on a household level. They see what you watch, when you pause, when you rewind, and they also send surveys to people, to like ask additional questions about their TV consumption patterns. They pay people $20 a month for this, and then they sell this data to media companies, advertisers, hedge funds. They aggregate them just on a monthly basis. The way we can collect data is way richer. So first of all, we would like our agents would know the same thing that Nielsen does. So like we covered that baseline. Then we know how people interact with content, what questions they ask, extra experiences they're searching for. We know what's actually happening in the story on the creative side. So if everybody stops watching certain show at minute 16, Nielsen would know that, but we know what was happening in the scenes just before that. And we know how people were interacting with that. So we can draw, like, we can identify patterns that are impossible just with Nielsen data. We are collecting data on individual level. We collect it real time. And for decentralized approach and ingraining the analytics technology in the like very natural user experience flow with no extra hardware required, we can get way more than 50,000 contributors to this network. So yeah, that we're actually already see signs of demand. We're partnering with Division, which is one of the leading competitors to Nielsen. They're very interested in this viewership data because you just cannot collect it anywhere else at the moment.
Yeah, a few years ago, I was actually a Nielsen family also. And I can tell you, it felt very intrusive at the end of the month to get my $20 check in the mail for everything I had to give up and do in order to earn that $20. It taught me a lot about what's kind of broken in that model. And Rumi's kind of here to fix that and elevate it, which is pretty cool. But one of the secrets that a lot of us don't realize is like most hardware companies, for instance, like television manufacturers, when you look at their statements, it turns out that some of their television divisions are loss leaders. And where do they actually make their money? They make their money on the underlying analytics that they passively are collecting in the background. Right. Once again, very similar to the Nielsen level data in the sense that it's aggregated, it's device specific. It might be on a household level, but there's no notion whatsoever of personal preferences and interactivity within that data set that they're able to monetize. So we're here to help television manufacturers learn a little bit more about their business too.
That's awesome. I signed up to be a Nielsen family. I don't even have cable TV, I don't think, but I signed up to the Nielsen family when I was in the process. I don't think they've gotten back to me yet, so hopefully I get to experience it soon. Guys, to wrap it up, I want to ask an advice question, because I know we have a lot of founders that listen to the show. Yeah, at EV3, we've invested in like 20 companies over the past few years. We've probably looked at hundreds, or if not thousands, of pre-seed rounds in like the real world crypto space. And you guys ran one of the most impressive processes we've seen. Obviously ended up with a ton of offers. We were super lucky to be able to back you alongside our friends at Andreessen. And so I want to ask, like, what do you guys attribute the success to, or what advice would you have to DePIN founders who are going out for their first raise and trying to get the right capital, the right partners on board?
Well, I'll say this, and I think Mateusz probably has a more nuanced, even better answer, since Mateusz kind of ran our process very elegantly. I would say at the end of the tunnel, we're able to announce, hey, we have some great backers, we have some great products that we're releasing, but the journey to get there, right, is not easy, right? A lot of building happened prior to the raise. A lot of people's soul, a lot of people's devotion, kind of were a part of this journey. And this is months and months and months and months of model training and being deep in the weeds before we decided we have something now that the world can benefit from. And that's when we started meeting great folks like you guys, Sal. Mateusz, you can probably jump into.
That's right. Don't start the fundraising process too early. You really need to be ready, and it's like probably even more than what you assume it is. Like, yeah, we had quite a lot built, but even more so, like, we had such clarity about the vision. Like, whatever question we were getting in the from VCs, we're like, I got you. Like, I already know the answer. I thought about everything, like every potential path. So, and yeah, you need to know your story very well and practice your story quite a lot. Like, start with like friendly VCs, friendly investors, then go to like lower tier VCs, and like gradually get to the ones that you actually want. It's gonna take a lot of practice to get your story right. That's super critical. Yeah, you're gonna have to tell this story hundreds and hundreds of times. So prepare for that. It can be quite exhausting. It definitely helps when you're doing something that you're actually very passionate about. I think like one advice that comes from YC, that I completely disagree with, is that, yeah, for startups, like if you're building something, passion doesn't really matter. You don't have to do something that you're passionate about. You're gonna get passionate about it when you start seeing PMF. I don't know, like it's a really rough, long journey. I think like you really need to like wake up and like want to jump immediately to working. Like, yeah, like that must be like the thing that you're extremely excited and passionate about. That you just cannot stop thinking. I know it's quite unhealthy, but like you're only thinking about that, which is quite unhealthy. Take breaks. Don't only think about work. Don't only work.
Yeah, all else equal, startups and tech are very competitive worlds, right? And if you don't have that kind of want to jump out of bed zest for life in the work that you're doing, then someone else will, and they'll beat you. So I think you do need to have that level of motivation and passion for what you're doing. But with that, guys, I think that's pretty much the end of our questions here. I want to thank you for coming on and telling us about Rumi and your recent raise, and just want to ask you where should we direct our listeners to both learn more about Rumi and what you all are building, and also start to get involved with your points program on the supply side?
Yeah, of course. So come check out our website, rumilabs.io. Go follow us on Twitter. It's also Rumi Labs. What's the name of his character, Niko? The dash, but underscore. Rumi Labs _IO. That's our Twitter handle. Go there
for now.
Yes, start engaging in with community. We have exciting stuff coming soon, so stay tuned. You can go download our extension right now. Start earning while watching TV. We're gonna have like a bunch of early joiner benefits. Go refer your friends to earn more points. And what else, Niko?
I'll put in a small plug too. I'm really excited about the state of the art research that our AI team specifically is able to start pushing into the world. We're always on the lookout for the world's leading computer vision researchers who want to join the effort here. We always have a home for you. So reach out, DM us, email us, hit us up on Twitter. We're here.
Thanks, guys, for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us, guys. Thank you.